This is a Transportation TV News update. I'm Tony Dorsey reporting. The Senate on Thursday passed the fiscal year 2010 spending bill for the Department of Transportation, raising the likelihood that the bill may be sent to the White House before the year begins October 1st. The bill provides $77 billion for the DOT, including $42.5 billion for the Federal Highway Program and $10.5 billion for transit. One issue conferees must now decide is how much funding will go to high-speed rail, with the House proposing $4 billion and the Senate including only $1.2 billion. The nation's governors this week called on Congress to repeal an impending $8.7 billion rescission in federal contract authority, which is set to take place on September 30th. California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and New Jersey Governor John Corzine said that the reduction would undermine progress being made from the investment of economic stimulus funds. Newsday reports that New York State officials say unless the rescission is repealed, $407 million in transportation funds will be lost. Watch for updates right here on Transportation TV. They call it a newsmaker press conference, and on Monday, September 10th, a panel made up of members of the Freight Stakeholders Coalition answered some tough questions from reporters about the future of surface transportation in America. The news being made here today centered on an extension of SafetyLoo, the critical legislation that authorizes funding for highway and transit programs, set to expire at the end of this month.
Highway Trust Fund and
Alan Beeler, president of the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials and secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, talked about the need for certainty in planning and funding transportation projects, many of which take years to complete.
We hope that we don't reach a situation where we skip a beat, don't have a program, and face the horrible reality of stopping contracts.
Representing the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, one of 17 organizations now part of the coalition, was Janet Kavanaugh. She said Congress needs to multitask, stating that the health care issue and transportation can be addressed at the same time without the need for a lengthy extension. She says two commissions have already determined what needs to be included in the next transportation bill and how to pay for it.
An extension with a realistic length of getting things done, possibly 6 months or so, is something we thought would actually allow us to deliver on what the goals were, which is keep things going, provide enough certainty that we're not doing what we did in SafetyLoo, 11 days here and 3 months there and what have you.
Meanwhile, with time running out on the legislation, the pressure mounts for a solution. The coalition also discussed the likelihood of increasing the gasoline tax. Mort Downey, a senior transportation consultant, served as Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation in 1993, the last year Congress approved a gas tax hike.
In 93, those proceeds were devoted to recovery for a few years before they then became part of transportation, but everybody knew they would eventually be part of our investment. That's what we have to link, is the investments that will occur, the jobs that will be created, the long-term growth, and the need to pay for it.
Coalition members were unified in their call for a national multimodal freight strategic plan to be included in the next transportation bill. To read the coalition's reauthorization platform, go to the address on your screen. Also in the news, recovery spending on highway improvement projects is ahead of schedule, according to Robert Neighbors, Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act required states to obligate 50% of the funds within 120 days. And in his testimony before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, September 10th, Neighbors said that every state not only met the goal but exceeded it by at least 10 days. Now, an October 10th deadline looms for recipients of Recovery Act funds to provide detailed reporting on how and where funds are being used. The information will be placed on a new website, federalreporting.gov. The reports will include information on the status of funds and job creation. And speaking of the Recovery Act, as of September 4th, the Federal Highway Administration reports that 3,455 ARRA projects were underway across the country, worth $10.1 billion. Overall, more than $18 billion has been obligated or assigned to specific projects. That represents 69% of the $26.8 billion in ARRA funds targeted for highways and bridges. That's the Transportation News Update. I'm Tony Dorsey reporting.